go clean up leaves with me today? Nah, I don't want to do that. Let's go gab in the garden instead. Come on. Welcome everyone to Garden Gab. My name is Michelle and I live in Northern Illinois, Zone 5. Today we're going to go around and answer questions from the previous videos. I think all the way back to September. I haven't done one since then. So we don't have a lot of questions, but we have enough of them that we're going to go gab in the garden. Are you ready? Let's go check it out. Before we jump into questions, let's just do a little housekeeping first. All right, first we're going to talk about the newsletter. Some of you might be going, oh, I love the newsletter. Some of you might be going, yeah, it's okay. And some of you might be going, what newsletter? All right, so in January, we started putting out a newsletter. We did a poll to find out if people would be interested in that and they would find that relevant and useful. And it was kind of a unanimous, yes, we want that. So I started producing a newsletter back in January. Every month we send it out at the beginning of the month, and in that newsletter are just different things that I talk about. Usually they are relevant to the month that we're in here in Zone 5, and there are announcements and things that are going on at the garden center, because not only does this newsletter go to you guys out there, but it also goes to local people that live around me, and we always want to make sure that they know what's going on at the garden center. And some of you have come to some of the events because you know about them to the garden center. So we always want to make sure that we include that. So if you've never gotten the newsletter and you want to get it, it's free. And you just go to our website right here. You click a button that says, I want the newsletter, and then you fill out your information and then you get it. Now, for those of you that have been getting the newsletter, this is the part that I'm looking for. I really want some feedback. What do you like about it? What don't you like about it? What would you like to add? What would you change? Now, I'm not going to make a book out of this. This is a newsletter. But if there's things that you want me to address or talk about, or you'd like to see different, you know what? Give me that feedback down below, because this newsletter is not for me. It's for you. And so I want to talk about things that are relevant to you. Now, the one thing I will caution is I live in Zone 5, you guys. I'm a Midwest gardener. I'm not going to talk about the Deep South or Zone 8 or 9, because you know what? I don't really know a whole lot about that. I know about where I live. And if I can talk in broad strokes about some of those other areas that maybe you live in, I'd be more than happy to do that. But I don't like to talk about things that I don't know what I'm talking about. So kind of keep it real and remember where I live. All right, so that's kind of business number one. All right, business number two, thank you. I want to thank everyone who ordered bulbs. And I want to apologize to everyone who tried to order bulbs when we released the video and we were selling the bulbs. I honestly did not expect to sell out by 3 o'clock on the same day that we released the video. I am so grateful for everyone that ordered bulbs. We only had a couple people that didn't follow through and actually pay for their bulbs and get them. That was kind of a bummer, because then we had those bulbs and we had to figure out what to do with them. But I am so grateful for the people that did order and get their bulbs and supported our channel. And oh my gosh, I'm so sorry that I did not anticipate the response. I ordered 3 times as many as I did the year before. And the year before, when we did this through the Shopify page, I think it took me almost 2 weeks to sell out of all the bulbs that I offered. And so I didn't expect that I was going to sell out in I released the video at 8 and I was out by 3. So that was so unexpected, and I'm sorry to those of you that really wanted those and then couldn't get them. I'll plan better for that next year. But thank you to everyone that ordered. From the bottom of my heart, I'm so grateful for your support, and I'm so grateful for the community of gardeners out there that just want to learn and want to be a part of what we're creating here. So thank you. My last piece of business is about this area right here. So for those of you that have been following along, you know what's going on over here. For those of you that are just checking us out, this is our new eco garden that we're going to start planting in next year. And we do have videos about the plan and how I built it and all of that. You can go check that out. But what I'm looking at from you guys today is I need a name. I need a name for my new area. I will be putting it out on a poll as well so that people can offer their suggestions. And remember, it's an eco-friendly system. It's where nature takes care of nature, and it's where we're going to be growing a mix of cut flowers, vegetables, and herbs. The herbs will be used medicinally. They'll also be used for beauty products, and they'll be used for eating. So all of that is going to be going out in this area. We have a flower ministry that we're going to be starting. So all of that. Great stuff coming. All right, so I need a name though. So give me your feedback or your suggestions down below. Are you ready? Let's answer some questions. We're going to go all the way back to September and we're going to answer questions from the video that I put out about how to bring your houseplants in for the winter. So this was actually a video that I made a year ago, and I added a little segment to it and I changed the beginning and the end. I redid the video and re-released it, mostly because I thought it was relevant. I didn't feel like I needed to make the video again, and I felt like it was the right timing and people would like to know this information. That video was very well received. I think the timing was just when people were thinking about, what do I need to do to bring my plants inside? So we're going to answer questions from that video because there were a lot of them that were repeated over and over and over again. So the first question that was asked was, can I use neem oil? The answer is yes, absolutely. I just didn't include that one in because I like the other two products. That's what I use. I do like to rotate back and forth between products, and I do like to use organics, and the first two I showed were organic. Now, neem oil works the same way. It's a smothering technique, and you spray it on your plant just like you do the other two. I do think insects kind of build a resistance to things, so I do like to rotate between products. That way I feel like I have a higher success rate with combating and being proactive and or reactive to any bugs that I might get or that I do have. The next set of questions was about the hydrogen peroxide solution that I use, and people were asking about, can I use it on herbs? Can I use it on my citrus? Can I use it on my lime tree? Can I use it on my tomatoes? Can I use it as a preventative in the garden outside? And my answer to that is, I have no idea as far as the fruit and stuff. I personally probably would not use a hydrogen peroxide solution on anything that I'm eating, mostly because I don't know what it'll do. And if I don't know, I err on the side of, I'm not doing that. The other thing is, would I use it out in my plants outside? Probably not. This is like a one-time application or maybe a two-time application. This is not a repeated application over and over and over again into the soil of where I'm growing. That is not what I'm doing. This is a preventative or a reactive treatment in the soil of house plants that I'm bringing inside. So I don't know what it would do to things that I'm eating, and I'm not going to tell people to do that because I personally don't know. The next question was about the soap. There was so many comments about the soap. Like, I can't believe you're using soap on your plants and you're going to kill your plants. And you guys think that I put like a gallon of soap in my water. It was 1 or 2 drops. And I used ivory, which is very mild. And a lot of people suggested Castile soap, which I think that is a very mild soap too. And I think even if you put a drop or 2 of Dawn dish soap in there, I think it would be totally fine. I mean, they clean animals with Dawn dish soap. This wasn't like big sudsy water. This was a little bit of soap in the water, and the gloves were used to clean off the leaves. Now, I did get questions about, what about like leaves that you can't clean off, like an asparagus fern or something with itty bitty leaves? What are you doing then? Well, then I would probably hose everything off really well, or put it in my bathtub and put a shower on it and let that clean it off and then let it drain. But I would take it back outside and let that baby dry out before I bring it in, because that's one of the tricks of bringing them inside, is bringing them inside after they dry out. Remember I said in the video that I do this before I bring them inside. I don't do this and then bring them inside. I am a week ahead of weather when I do this. So that day I did that treatment on all of my plants, but my plants sat out there for another probably week and a half before I brought them inside. Don't bring your plants in sopping wet, because that is how you get fungus gnats. I guarantee it. You'll have gnats everywhere. So make sure you dry them out before you bring them in. The last question I got on that video, I got this question a lot, was, why do I put rocks on top of my plants or on top of the soil? I just do it because I like the way they look. It serves zero purpose, you guys, other than I don't like to look at the dirt, and I don't like to use moss because I've had cats in the past and the cats would always rip the moss off the bottom of my plants. So I use rocks. I just like the way it looks. That's it. So I have started my fall cleanup. I haven't made it to the back yet because I really do like the way the hostas turn all yellow as the leaves are falling. That is such a pretty look in the garden. Now, I don't leave it there for long. I enjoy it for about a week, and then I start cleaning up the back garden. Plus, once they start to look like this, they're a little bit easier to clean up. The foliage kind of just melts right off of them, and I can just kind of pull them out easier. So I don't leave hosta foliage up in my garden during the winter. It's actually a place that you do want to clean up in your garden. That's where you'll get a lot of things you don't want overwintering. So even if you leave other things up, clean your hostas up. All right, we're gonna move on to our next video, which was taking out that bed that I had that was a holding bed for like 2 years, and then I added a temporary bed with a lot of pretty fall color in it. So I'll go up and I'll show you that in just a second. But we did get 2 questions from that. One of them being, am I a master gardener? Yes, I am a master gardener. Now, I'm not actively in the program at this time, and for those of you that want to know what a master gardener is, basically what it is it's a program that's run usually by a university in a state, and then that state takes it down to counties. In our case, the University of Illinois runs the program, and then it breaks it down into smaller extension offices, which most counties have. Now, in rural areas, it might be that you have multiple counties that are combined together. And what the Master Gardener program is it's a volunteer program in counties through a university or an extension office where you volunteer your time doing civic things that have to do with gardening around the community that you live in. Typically, you have to go through a class to get certified. Now, back when I did it, you did them in person. I think now a lot of extension offices offer them to do online. I really liked the in-person. It was 12 weeks. I went once a week, and every week there was like this certified instructor or a professor from the college or something that taught the class, and you learned about like how to take care of your soil, and there was IPM where you talked about diseases and bugs, and then there'd be a whole week about ornamental grasses and perennials. And so it took you through this pretty intense training program where you learned a lot in 12 weeks. Then you had to do like volunteer time. So the first time I did it where I live, it was 60 hours of volunteer time, and they want you to complete that in a year. And then after that, you become a certified master gardener, and then you volunteer your time every year to be active 30 hours a year. So when I did it, I did a lot of teaching, and almost all of my time was spent teaching classes or doing educational seminars or something like that. There's a lot of different things that you can do through the program, and every county is different, but that is what a Master Gardener program is. And if you want to become a Master Gardener, I would check out what is the criteria in your county by contacting your extension office. The other question that I got asked in that video was what tool that I use to cut back the plants in that garden. So I do use my Falcos a lot, but there's times where it is faster to use these little hand trimmers, and I just use this little trimming tool on here. I actually did a video on this last year where this company actually gave me this product, and I promoted their product on the video. There's a little hedge clipper tool that goes on this as well. These are from Steel Light. You can buy these on Amazon. They're battery operated. I love this tool. I use it a lot in my garden to cut things back. It's fast, it's easy, and I just go through and I cut it all back, and then I just rake it out. So I do like the little, I think this is the grass trimmer, but I use it to trim perennials all the time. It's not gonna work on something thick and woody, but oh, I like this little tool. So while we're up here, I'll just show you my little garden here that I put the cabbages and the kale in. So the mums are still blooming. They still look really good. I probably should have been a little bit earlier as far as getting some size on these, but you can definitely see how they've totally colored up. Isn't that great? So if I had done this maybe 3 weeks earlier or even 2 weeks earlier, I'd probably have some better size on these cabbages and kales. But I'm leaving this until they don't look good anymore. Yeah. So there you go. There's a little area that we did, and it's still looking good. This will all come out, and then we'll plant something more permanent next year. But this is what I put in to get me through until I was ready to do that. The next video was the October garden tour, and we went around and we toured the garden while it was still looking good. I did that tour before we had had any frost, so there was still perennials blooming, there was still shrubs blooming, there was still a lot of annuals blooming, and the garden actually looked really good. I was pretty happy with how long this fall has been extended. To this day, the garden still looks pretty good, even though I've got a gazillion leaves to clean up, and I have to start getting on cutting back the perennials. But I went out of town for 2 days for my birthday, and my girls took me on this road trip up to Michigan, which, oh my gosh, that was fabulous. And I've been working on the Christmas walk, and I've been working on flipping the store for Christmas, which you guys will all see in a video here coming up, so stay tuned for that. But I Loved the garden tour in October, and I enjoyed my garden for as long as possible. And we have had only 2 frosts. And today is November, what is today, the 8th? And we've only had 2 frosts since the beginning of fall. So yeah, knock on wood. I think we've got some coming up here in the next couple weeks though. But in that garden tour, we got asked a couple questions, one of which is, fall is so pretty, is it still safe to plant shrubs? And yes, you can plant shrubs as long as you can get them in the ground and the ground isn't frozen. They would rather be under the ground than like overwintering someplace in a pot. They want to be protected underground, and you just got to keep them watered. So depending on where you live, you just want to make sure that when you put them in the ground, you hydrate them well. Maybe you water them a couple more times between now and the time that the ground freezes. And you might have to water the root ball a couple times through the winter just so that you keep it moist and it doesn't dry out. Now, if you're planting evergreens, I think evergreens is a little bit different. You definitely have to hydrate, because evergreens, when the ground freezes, really can't pull water up through their roots. So you want to make sure that whatever you're doing with evergreens, you protect them. I like to use wilt stop on those first year evergreens to seal in that needle to help it not dry out during the winter. And I definitely make sure I bring some water out and water those root balls through the winter. Maybe once a month is about when I'm getting the water on those. But yeah, you can definitely plant them in the ground. They're actually going in the ground, they're getting protected, and they just go to sleep and they're dormant. Now, another question that kind of went hand in hand with that one, is it okay to transplant shrubs at this time of year? So I had someone that had some 9-barks that were older, and they were worried about getting enough roots to transplant it. Now, personally for me, I probably would not transplant until they're dormant. That means all the leaves have fallen off and they've gone to sleep. That way there's less shock. And I would actually wait until spring to do that, like right in the spring. Before they wake up, get them transplanted them. They will wake up out of their dormancy and be happier for it. Now, the one thing that people think is that they have this really huge shrub, that they're going to have this really huge root system. And yeah, there absolutely could be a really big root system on there, but you're not trying to get all the roots. What you're doing is actually you're root pruning these shrubs and getting a big enough root ball and soil around them that's intact, so that when you transplant it to its new home, those roots will take off. And whatever roots are left in the ground, those just stay in the ground and they will eventually die back. Now, there are some shrubs, when you dig them out, that they'll produce suckers all over the place, and you can use like a stump remover or a sucker punch or something like that on them to make those go away later. But for the most part, when you dig up a shrub like that, you just want to make sure you get a good amount of the soil and the roots and take it with you. So that's why it's important to have a sharp shovel so you can cut those roots. Now, I've had people ask in this same video or other videos, how do I sharpen my shovel? I do have a video coming up on that, on what I do to sharpen my shovel. So stay tuned for that. It'll be a winter video. This way, it's a good time to sharpen all your tools. I'll take you through what I do to sharpen them. Another question that I get a lot is, where do I get my Sedona bowls? So most of them I get from my garden center because I just order them in. And I've had a lot of people say, I can't afford them, or they're really expensive. And I don't know what kind of Sedona bowls you're looking at. If you're looking at like different materials that are really expensive, I buy plastic ones, you guys. I do not spend a lot of money on these. I think my Sedona bowls are 14 inches around, and the plastic ones that I'm using, I think maybe I spent $15 on them. They're not expensive, and you can find them on the internet. You can find them at box stores like Lowe's, Home Depot. Usually garden centers have them. Now, if you're looking for a higher end, more decorative bowl, absolutely, they're going to cost more money. You get what you pay for. But because I nestle these down in the ground, because I'm planting annuals in them and I dump them out every year, I want them to last. This is not like a decorative piece that I'm putting up on a pedestal and creating like garden art in my garden. Now, if I did that, I probably would spend a little bit more on the bowl. But because they're going in the ground, I just buy plastic ones. That is totally fine for me. The ones that I've been showing you that I use along my sidewalk and that I'm going to put right back here in this new area that I made, you guys, I've had those bowls, I don't know, probably for 8 or 9 years. I had them at my other house. So I've been gardening in this one Well, actually, they're older than that. I've lived in this house for 10 years. I just finished my 7th season gardening in it, and I had them at my other house. So that means I've had these bulbs for like 12 years. So yeah, if you put them away every winter and dump them out, they'll last a long time. Plastic is fine. This is a Sunset Monet Weigilla, and I talked about how I was going to cut this to the ground in my video and have it come up new next year. So I was going to do a rejuvenation prune. And a lot of comments came through this that I thought Weigillas bloomed on old wood. Well, yes, a lot of the older varieties do, but a lot of the newer varieties bloom on old wood and new wood. So what's going to happen is I won't have as probably a thick a flush of flowers next year because it will be on new wood, but I do get blooms on this one, which is the Sunset Monet, on new wood. So look for some of the newer cultivars if you're looking for that, because my guy, he blooms that one time, that big flush on the old wood, which I will not get next year. But then as it pushes up the new growth, I'll get blooms throughout the whole summer on this shrub, on the new wood. So that's what I'm going to get on this next year. And it'll be smaller. It'll take it some time to grow this big again, and I'm okay with that. I like to refresh my shrubs, and a Weigilla is one that I can do that with. Now, if you have one that is overgrown and it's oversized and you want to make it smaller, you can absolutely take it back by a third after it's done blooming, cut out some branches at the bottom to open it up. I think I've done a video on that with this exact same bush. I think it was the video I did like last year when I was doing cutting back in the garden. But the other thing you can do is if you want to take your Weigilla all the way to the ground, you absolutely can. You're just going to sacrifice the blooms if you have an older variety that first year while it's growing back up. Now, I have not cut this one back. I will wait until all the leaves fall off, it's dormant, and I will do it in early spring. And probably when I do it, I'll take you guys along and show you what I'm doing. This was the next question right here, this rock pillar that I made when I created the cottage garden. And unless you knew to watch this in the cottage garden, it would be hard to find the instructions on how to make it. I actually plan on making like 2 or 3 more in my garden so I can elevate some bowls on these and have elevated plants in the garden. So I'm looking forward to that. But this was really super easy to make. I actually made it out of tomato cages. And what I did was I bought the inverted tomato cages that go backwards, and that way I was able to put the skinny part at the top and the wide part at the bottom, and I just cut the legs off. Now you could probably buy regular tomato cages and do this and just flip them upside down and cut the legs off, but then you got to kind of grind off the cut parts, because when you cut them off with the wire cutters, it makes it so that it's hard to make the aggregate little stepping stone on top be level. So that's why I like the inverted ones. The other thing is you can't do this with cheap tomato cages. You got to put out a little money and buy the heavy duty ones. And basically what I did was I just put 3 of them together and I just, shift them a little bit every time I overlapped them. And then I filled it up with appropriate sized rocks to fit in this. And then I used an aggregate stepping stone on top. So let me show you the stepping stone that's on top, because right now I'm in the process of trying to figure out how to make these stepping stones so that I can have stepping stones like this leading up to where the swing is going to be. And I think that these are going to be fun and easy to make. And I get a lot of people that ask me, how can I make stepping stones? So for me, I need a stepping stone that won't break though, that will last. And the first hard winter I get, it's not snapping in half if I walk on top of it. So yeah, I'm working on that right now. But let me show you the top of this. So this is the top here. It's made with pea gravel on the top, and it's really dirty. It actually needs to be pressure washed. And then the stepping stone itself is probably, I would say that this is an inch thick. And then as you can see, we just have the different tomato cages in here. And you can see this is so close together here because I moved the direction of the cages, and I have 3 of them here. And then I just filled it up with rocks. But see, isn't that cool looking? Pillars are expensive, especially nice big concrete ones. So this was my inexpensive solution to that. The next video was our garden glow up, where we added 3 different perennials to our bed over here on the east side of the she shed. We added Gaillardia, which, look at this, you guys. This is why I love this plant. I love the little billy balls on there. I love the flowers. I just like this plant. But we also added daisies and Caryopteris. So that was a blend that we put through here. I have since planted some bulbs through here. And so next year, this is going to look great. The question that I got was whether or not I use mulch glue. And my answer to that is no, I do not. I want mine to break down. I want this to create microorganisms in the soil. And even though it costs me money to mulch, the bigger the plants in this bed get, the less mulch I'll have to use. And I don't mulch every single year. I mulch pretty much only in new areas or every third year. I also use mulch because aesthetically I think it looks good. I also use it to stabilize soil temperature, to help suppress weeds, and to maintain moisture in my soil. If I were to use glue, I don't know if the moisture and the nutrients and everything that I'm doing would penetrate down through that. And then does it stop the breakdown of my mulch? I don't know. So for me, it's a definite hard no. Aren't these pretty? These are my Mr. Bowling Ball arborvitaes. We planted these not this year, but the year before. And in the video when I planted them, I talked about how I would spray them with wilt stop and they would be all beautiful if I did that and sealed in the needles. Well, I didn't do that. Yeah, I didn't do that. I didn't water them. I didn't do anything to them. And I paid the price. In the spring, I showed you guys in the tour how these browned out. And I went through and I clipped out all the brown and then I just started watering them again and I fertilized them and they've recovered very nicely. But I don't need to be doing that and stressing out the plant if I just follow the steps that I talk about. So we did get a question, and in the question, this lady has planted tater tot arborvitaes. So it's a different arborvitae, but they're still the little minis, and she just planted them. And she wants to know if she has to go out there, if there's a dry spell like in January, and put water on them. She lives in zone 5A, I'm 5B, well, we're all just a big happy 5. But yes, I didn't do that, and mine browned out. And I'm really happy that at least I didn't kill them. But this year I will spray them out with the wilt stop, and I will come out here, yes I will, and put water on them. I don't have to put a lot of water, just enough to keep the root ball moist, because that's what takes them out. It's not the cold, it's the lack of water. So the answer is yes, go out there and do that. I got asked a question on my new garden beds as to whether or not I put fabric down underneath my raised beds. And the answer is I did not. But there was a qualifier in this question in that she has quackgrass. And when I answered the question, I gave, it depends. And it really does depend. It depends on how deep your bed is. Now, you can see right here, we have shallower beds. So here I put cardboard down. I did that in the spring. And that cardboard sat there getting wet and saturating the ground and burning out any of the grass and the weeds that was underneath it. That eventually will all break down and I'll be back into the native soil. I did top this bed off with compost and it is sitting there all winter. And in the spring before I plant, I will put more compost on top of this. So that is an area and that is how I did that. Now if we swing over here to the raised beds. Now we did have a question about the cedar beds as to whether or not I put landscape fabric on the bottom of those. And the answer is no, I didn't. And I also got a question as to whether or not I should waterproof them. And I am not doing that either. I don't want any chemicals on here that could leach into my soil. And these beds were pretty inexpensive. And let's say 5 years from now, these beds are falling apart and I need to get some new ones. I'll just go buy some new ones. I'm not really worried about that. They're not very big and they weren't very expensive. All right, let's go to the metal beds, which are 2 feet high. Now these beds here, the question was, did I put fabric down underneath this? And I did not. I did the layering technique where I put logs and debris about 1/3 of the way up. Then I made a blend of topsoil, sand, and compost. I blended them all together and I put that in the next third. And then on top of that, I put pure compost, which is now sitting here all winter. And before I plant in the spring, I'll probably top them off with more compost. Now, the question was, should I put landscape fabric underneath these? And I think it depends on how deep the bed is. If your bed's not very deep, you need your roots to be able to get into the native soil. If your bed is really tall like this, most of the vegetables that I'm planting here are not going to have roots that are 2 feet deep. But I get what you're saying about the quackgrass. And I'm going to take you over to my community garden real quick. And I'm going to show you a bed that I have to take apart. It's 2 feet tall. And actually, it's a little bit taller than 2 feet, or maybe it is right at 2 feet. But anyways, I have to take this bed apart, not because the bed is worn out or because it's old, but because quackgrass grew all the way from the bottom all the way to the top, and the whole bed is quackgrass, and it's unusable as a garden bed now because the whole thing is quackgrass. And I'm not going to spray it out. I'm eating the food out of that soil. So what's my solution? I got to take it apart and start over with different soil. So on that one, I wish I would have put the fabric on the bottom, but you got to have a bed that's deep enough to do that. Let me show you what I'm talking about. Okay, so now I'm over at the community garden area, and you can see that I have taken some beds apart, but this is the bed that I'm talking about right here. Now we did trim it down, and I haven't taken this bed apart yet, but this bed right here, this whole thing is quackgrass. And look at how high this bed is, you guys. That quackgrass was not in the soil that I put in there. It grew from the native soil all the way up through this bed. So if you know, my lady, that you have quackgrass, then I'm going to say yes, put that fabric down, especially if your bed is this deep. Now, if your bed is shallower than this, yeah, you got to make sure you have enough room that the roots will grow. Now, I am a proponent of native soil underneath, but not for this kind of a problem. And quackgrass, oh my God, is that some tough stuff to get rid of. One of the questions I got was, did I miss the watering system information? And no, you didn't. But here's my well, okay? So I'm actually on the west side of my property. And if we travel all the way over to the other side of the property, which, let me put you on pause. Still walking. Oh, still walking. All right, here we are. We're on the other side of the she shed now, and see the big field between me and my new garden area? Well, that's my septic field. Now, I do have room that I could trench back there and go all the way around, but I'm still figuring out what I'm doing for the watering system. And right now I have a hose reel right here that hooks up to my garden water, or the water that's attached to the house, and then we're going to bring it across and attach it to whatever system that we, do. And that might be my temporary solution. But I'm probably going to call an expert and probably plumb the water out here from the well. And I'll probably have to go around the septic field or whatever, and then have a spigot out here where I can actually access. But I don't know what I'm doing yet. I'm still figuring that out. While we're out here, we did get asked one more question. That question was about these shrubs that I have surrounding the garden bed on the east end. These are privets, and we are going to grow these up. They're going to get 8 to 12 feet tall. We'll probably cap them off between 8 and 12. They're going to grow together, and they're going to create a living wall around this whole area. Won't that be awesome? So I chose privets because they were inexpensive, and if I hate them, at least I'm not out a ton of money. But part of my reason for doing that was because my neighbors, they're terrible about mowing their grass, and it's kind of like a farm kind of thing where they have animals and stuff, and I really don't like looking at their property, so I'm creating a living wall to kind of block that out. Want to see the garlic? Hey, check it out. Isn't that exciting? There's not a whole lot going on there. I have not watered it since I put it in, and that is the next video where I talked about the plan for out here, but I also planted garlic. One of the questions I got was, hey, I just buy garlic from the grocery store and put that in the ground and grow it that way. Is that okay? Sure. If you don't want to know what kind of garlic you're growing or how it was treated or anything like that, totally fine. I prefer to be able to choose the kind of garlic that I'm putting in, and I want to know how it was treated before I put it in the ground. Two more questions about the garlic. One being, is it okay if they start to grow? Yes. That's normal, and you want them to have a little bit of development going into winter. You want some roots to grow, and if you get a little bit of top growth too, that's okay. The biggest thing you want to make sure you do, especially if you're in a raised bed, is you got to get some kind of mulch on top. Whether it's leaves, it's mulch, it's pine needles, which somebody asked me if that was okay to use. Absolutely. You want to make sure you cover them once the ground freezes to take you through the winter. Now, the one thing that I will do in the spring is once the ground is starting to warm up, I will pull that mulch off the top of the garlic bulbs. I'll leave it in the aisles in between the garlic, and that way it'll help with weed suppression. It also helps with the warmth of the soil around the garlic. So yeah, that's what I'm doing with my garlic. In the next video, I talked about the warm season and the cool season cut flowers that I was going to be growing out here and what varieties I was going to be growing. I had a question about if I'm a beginner, what are some easier varieties to grow? And I would say hands down, the two easiest to grow are zinnias and marigolds. Those grow from seeds so easily in the ground. Oh, and probably bachelor buttons and cosmos. Okay, so there's four. Those four are super easy. Now, if you are going to start them in seed trays, I think by far the easiest annual flower to grow in a seed tray, this is my opinion, is geraniums. Now, I don't have geraniums growing out there, but those are certainly the easiest started seeds I've ever grown. And then number two would definitely be probably snapdragons. Those are super easy to start in a seed tray. And if you want a cool season flower, that would be one I would definitely try. I had another person who I think probably is somebody that watches my video and probably comes to the garden center. They wanted to know is when I'm growing all these cut flowers out here and I'm harvesting, because that is part of what you have to do to make this ecosystem that I'm creating successful, is you've got to harvest the flowers because you need them to keep producing so that you have flowers from basically the beginning of the season to the end of the season. And they want to know if I'm going to be selling them at the garden center. And no, I'm not. Now, I might grow some of the sunflowers and share the sunflowers over there, but my whole purpose of growing this is not to use at the garden center. I'm actually starting a flower ministry, and in that flower ministry, I will be using the bouquets and giving them away through this ministry. I've had some people ask, like, how are you going to work that out? And what is that going to be like? And when I get to that part, I'll do a video about it and share it with you. The last video, which actually just came out this last Thursday, was just what I do to create the color drifts and the blocks of color in my garden with the bulbs. And it was really just some easy tricks on what to do visually to create that, because I don't know about you guys, I'm a visual person. I like to see things. Now, I did get some questions in that video about specifically how to plant bulbs and things like that, but I did reference at the beginning of the video, if you wanted to check that out, there is a video about that, and you can learn my 10 steps on what to do to plant bulbs. And if you want that information, I would highly recommend that you go check that out. One of the questions that I got a couple times though was, what am I doing about the dying back foliage? And I do believe I addressed it in the video, but I'll talk about it again. One is I will strategically place my bulbs throughout a bed in an area where other foliage that's early to come up in the spring will help hide back the dying foliage. So that for me is a strategic way that I do it when I'm planning where to put things in my beds. Another way I do it is maybe it's in a bed that I don't see as often, but I want that color there in the spring, and I will just let them die back naturally. I'm not necessarily a fan of that, and I think a lot of people aren't a fan of that. But the other thing you can do, and which I have done, and if you really think about how much you spent for those bulbs, they're really not that expensive, unless you're really buying some high-end bulbs. But you can buy bulbs pretty inexpensively. You can treat them like an annual. And if you want to cut them back, you can cut them back, and they won't re-energize, and they probably won't come up the next year. Or if they do come up the next year, they won't produce a flower, and you can just cut back the foliage at that time. If you want to go through the trouble of digging them up or pulling them up, you can do that too. I've done both. So either way works. Now, when I'm investing in an area, I will strategically do it because I want them to keep coming back. I have a tendency to do that more with daffodils than I do with tulips. Tulips for me, you know, they come up and they'll last for a couple years. Darwin tulips are the best at coming back every year. Some of the really fancy ones like the parrots and the lilies and the doubles, yeah, if I get a show out of them for 1 year, great. But I don't invest a lot of money in doing it either, and I don't do it every year. So yeah, it's really a preference on your part of what you can afford, what your look is. Do you really care if you have spring flowers? I do. I have a YouTube channel, and I want that color in the spring. So yeah, I think it's a personal choice as far as what you do with that. The last question I got about the bulbs was, how many helpers did you have to get all of those bulbs in the ground? And the answer is 0. I did all of those myself. Now, yes, sometimes I bring helpers over here to help me on bigger projects, but when it comes to the day-to-day stuff, I pretty much do all of that myself. I did not plant them all at the same time though. And if you have a large amount of bulbs to plant, break it up. That's what I did. It took me about a week to get all those in the ground. And what I did was when I got home from work every day, I spent a little bit of time getting them in the ground. I did do it a couple times in the morning because I got home from work too late and it was dark and I couldn't see what I was doing. But yeah, space it out. If you have a large amount to plant, I don't know, you could tackle it all in one day. I don't have an auger. I like to dig the shallow holes and plant them all in one hole, and I like the way they come up that way. But if you have an auger and you want to do it in the grouping areas, you could do it that way too. So yeah, I just kind of bit off a little bit at a time until I got it all done. Look at how many leaves I still have on my trees. I've had a lot that have come down, but there's still a lot to come down. Usually I'm not doing my cleanup for leaves until the middle of November or all the way until almost Thanksgiving. It was a late fall this year. It took a long time for the leaves to change colors, and then when they did, it wasn't that great of a show this year. I think last year was better. I think part of it is because we haven't really had those cold temperatures that you need to trigger the leaf color to change and for the leaves to fall. It's been a beautiful fall though, and I can't complain about the weather because it's been fantastic. I only have 15 days left until my Christmas open house. I cannot believe it is coming on like a freight train. It's coming so fast. So I have to get back to the store. I gotta start working on putting more lights up in the Christmas walk, and I have to finish a few little details in flipping the store for Christmas, and then so many things to do. All the greens start arriving next week, and the trees will come at the end of next week, and then it's just another week away from that, and we are in full steam ahead for Christmas. I know. Where has the year gone? But it's been a fantastic year in the garden. And as we wind down and we move into winter, we will still produce videos. We will still put things out. Lots of things that we can talk about in the winter. So stay tuned for those, you guys. That's all I've got for today, you guys. I hope you enjoyed gabbing in the garden with me. I hope you get your hands in the dirt today, and we'll catch you in the next video. Bye, everyone.